Yeah, we're
Okay,
live.
and I'm on the left side today. That's like the pilot and co-pilot seat. I'm not sure how many.
So,
I'm not sure how many people are going to be watching since we had to change go to the emergency frequency. But sometimes we like to start the show with looking at some tools because we hope that the sensors get bored and drift away. So Fernando was just showing me a very interesting, like a thing for your vehicle or any toolbox, which is a combination tool, but not like your
yeah,
normal little multi-tool.
this one. I was showing Matt this Stanley tool that it's has like a pry bar on one end, nail puller, and a crusher hammer on this other side.
Yeah. And you can
Yeah,
do any crescent wrench job with it. And
yeah,
so even if you have to break
nice.
the hex nut off, you can just force it. And
Yeah.
it's a legit thing, you know. I mean, you can
Mm.
sometimes if you just have a little pry bar, it's considered a burglar tool,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
depending on where you are and what you're doing. But that's like an
Yeah,
all-around tool.
I think it's
And
a nice tool in general.
and I don't like, look for endorsements or, products, anything like that. But sometimes people just out of appreciation just send me stuff. And somebody sent me one of these a couple months ago. It's a guy named Peter Carey in, I think, New Mexico. I'm not sure about that. There's the very nice sheath, Kydex sheath, but this is an unbelievably great steel called S35VN. That like will keep its edge
Nice.
even after you're like cutting through helicopter skin. This is like if you were going into the end of the world with one knife and you couldn't sharpen it and you have to use it for everything, that would be it. And it's not a folder, so you have to you have to keep it on your belt, but rides nice and high, almost like a pistol. But that's a really way nicer knife than I would ever buy for myself, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
I wanted to thank Peter Carey for that, since he just sent it to me, no expectation, no request, no nothing. He just said, appreciate the book. So thought I would mention that extremely cool
It's
knife.
it's a nice design. It looks similar to the Daniel Winkler knife that many Navy SEALs are fond of. So it has that similar design going on. I think and the steel is fantastic. It's a premium
Yeah.
steel.
And this is just for Peter Carey. This in his he has like a online catalog. This is
Mm.
like a utility grade, just combat texture and grip, but he makes them with like the Damascus steel and bone handles and fancy wood handles, very like artistic.
The
You know, the,
geometry of the blade is also very sound. It's a very utilitarian type of blade shape.
yeah. Well, anyway, so anybody hoping to hear us say things they can get us in trouble for, maybe they tuned out by now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
So
man, it's complicated.
yeah, we're on another channel because here in this country that has a First Amendment, not really
Yeah,
anymore.
that's
Uh,
true.
I mean, I suppose that you can stand on the street corner with a sandwich board in this country and you won't be tackled by the police like you would in Australia, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
In Australia, standing on the street corner wearing a sandwich board would get you tackled and taken to well camp. You
yeah.
know, Quarantine will make you free. So you can't even leave your house in Australia. That's
But
that's
I,
at least
I
in
like
France they're fighting.
at least in France they're fighting, and because I see the comments here already. I just want to say a couple things. Look, uh, Matt and I we're no doctors. We just use common sense. So get your medical advice from your actual doctor and all that good stuff. I guess most of you already know. The thing is, the moment we start talking about anything that YouTube slightly even considers associated with any kind of medical advice, you get the ban. So we're not giving
Yeah,
medical advice for anyone here. And most of all, we're not talking about anything medical. We're talking about freedom, which is something that has been taken for granted for way too long. And in the last 20 years, And I don't know, Matt, let me know what you think. But in the last 20 years, the United States has gone through a process where there's less and less and less freedom until we've reached this point where we have to be careful about what we say.
It's
It is
on the books. We're free. On the books, we're free. You know what? But that you can say that the Soviet Union had a fantastic constitution, right? It's just that if you argued that you should actually have these rights, you would wind up in a gulag. You know, it was only on paper for like showing liberals in the West, look, we have freedom of speech. It's right there in the Soviet Constitution. But if you had actually said things against the regime, you would end up in the gulag or in a psychiatric hospital, because obviously all the sane people love communism. And if you talk against communism, then you're by definition, you're insane. And we seem to be going down that path where we just have a constitution that exists on paper, or like I said, you can go in your backyard and yell, but you can't say it on big social media platforms. But there's reasons for still using the YT, Yankee Tango, but absolutely, I go primarily to BitChute, to Rumble, to Brighteon, Mike Adams, Natural News, things like that. And I look for the people's names, like Dr. Robert Malone, Michael Yeadon, people like that. And I don't care if it's on if it's on Odyssey or Rumble or DLive. I just look for them. And YT is absolutely the last place that you want to go for real news because it's so censored. But it does have more reach. So we're in that in-between time where you're using this because it has more reach. And let's face it, people are just comfortable with it. They don't want to look for. But if you find a link and you see a link and it says here's a video and at the end it says Rumble or BitChute, it's legit. Yeah. And when you get there, you can make an account so that you can subscribe to your own channels. And then when new videos by the people you subscribe to come up, when you go to BitChute or Rumble, you'll see the new videos by just the people you have chosen. It's not like Gulag Yankee Tango, where you finish watching a video and they're pushing things at you that Gulag wants you to see. I like BitChute, for example, because when you do one video, it plays the video from before that by the same guy. So if you've missed 2 or 3 videos, one follows the other. And if you're on Gulag Yankee Tango, like today, after one video, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I was watching on Odyssey because I have my channel in Odyssey as well, and people have asked for it here in the comments. Hey, get your channel somewhere else. But even though some people ask for it, when I go to my channel, same name channel in Odyssey, it's 80 people that have signed up because people are comfortable and I absolutely get it. Now, I'll also say this. I was just watching right now Odyssey a little bit and looking around. There's stuff that it used to be like YouTube in the old days. There's 3D printing of guns, full auto Glocks, conversion, all that cool stuff that YouTube used to have. If you go to Odyssey, you'll find it. There's a lot of stuff about guns that is now censored. Matt, this has been going on. We've just been complacent and allowed it to go on and on. Little by little, they started disappearing content that they didn't approve of. Sure. You cannot make guns fully automatic, and many conservatives would have gone, yeah, sure, that's a good idea. Those are you don't need full auto for hunting, typical bullshit. And little by little, it got to a point where in my channel, I cannot even do videos about putting a flashlight on a gun because that's considered like an accessory for a firearm and a firearm customization, and it gets demonetized. So little by little, they took away our rights and our freedoms in this kind of stuff. And you know what? They always screw us with some keyword. If they say like my business, my rules, immediately conservatives have the knee-jerk reaction. Oh, yeah, that's absolutely correct.
In the past, but it's changing. People are becoming more realistic and practical. Because this is textbook fascism. The government doesn't ban you. They just wink to their friends at Gulag Yankee Tango, and then it turns out that inside the White House, there's people that, last week were working for Gulag Yankee Tango.
Yeah.
And over at Gulag Yankee Tango, they've got people that used to be affiliated with the people in the White House. So, they're texting each other privately. So the government just winks by a text message over to Gulag, and the next thing you know, you're banned. So we conservatives have to stop being suckers and saying, well, whatever a private company does, that's okay, because it's not. It's fascism when the government is controlling, when the government and the corporations
colludes
are
to
really the same thing.
Yeah,
They're one and the same.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And you know what? They are they're private entities for the things that they find beneficial at a certain point, and then right at the next second they find it convenient to portray themselves as a service, so they have more rights than an actual company, and then they're like a public service. So make up your mind: if you're a public service that people have a right to, then you don't have the right to tell people what they can say or they cannot say. It's no longer your business, your rules. If you're playing by the rules of what it's pretty much like a government, like an extension of the government, basically. Yeah. So they do this. These are the typical commies for when it's about your money, and very much capitalist when it's about getting their own accounts offshore and all that crap.
And we conservatives have to be smart enough not to be played for the suckers, in the middle of this game. There's a few questions that I've seen on the chat. Sure. A couple minutes ago, Andrew McNaughton asked, "Is there like a difference between, prepping for a dystopian medical nightmare versus a total collapse?" I would say yes. In both cases, it's going to be very different depending on where you are. So you got to get away from the blue hives, whether it's the Mad Max collapse or the dystopian medical tyranny. It's going to be worse the closer you are to a blue hive, period. Okay, it's very different. And even if you zoom all the way out to like the planetary view, especially this thing that happened in Afghanistan has been just a disaster for what you would call the Western Alliance, where you have NATO plus you have SEATO with the Southeast Asia Treaty and Japan and Taiwan. Nobody is trusting Washington now. So there are some big splits going on. The Five Eyes, which are USA, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, they have always collaborated on intel, matters, and they've always used it to like get around each other's laws. So like if America has a law against spying on Americans, they just wink to the MI6 and let MI6 do it, which was a lot of what was happening in the background of the Russia hoax. It was basically letting the UK do things that were absolutely criminal for the CIA to do. Well, we'll just let the Brits do it. But now we're seeing some real splits at a medical level because the Five Eyes still seem totally locked into this vegetable strategy. The only vegetables and nothing else, no other therapeutics. Whereas Japan is going full on therapeutic, the one that begins with I in particular. It's amazing that, in fact, I was thinking about a science fiction novel that I read, kind of like Gulliver's Travels, because Gulliver's Travels by Swift, that was written because if you wrote a parody about the king, you could be beheaded because you weren't allowed to like mock the king.
Right.
So you had to make up a parable or an analogy. And that's where Gulliver's Travels was written. So we have to now talk about a science fiction scenario where there's like another planet where for a while it was a democracy, but somehow the democracy got turned into an oligarchy. And the people really running the place just thought there were too many people on the planet. So they created a medicine and they told everybody that you had to take this medicine, but it was really poison.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now in the science, we're in this science fiction book I'm reading. It's all about this planet where the oligarch said, you know what, it's time to cull the herd.
Yeah.
But we're just going to come out with a medicine and tell everybody they have to take it. And this is a big problem for people because it's getting down to the time period where a lot of companies have, on this planet, I mean, on this planet, a lot of the companies have told their employees that they have to take this medicine by like a month from now, or they're going to lose their job.
And they will comply, Matt. They will comply.
But most will, but enough are not. And it's particularly among the medical people on this planet, because these are especially the nurses. They're the ones that are actually more aware than anybody that this medicine on this planet is really a poison. They know it better than anybody. The doctors, who seem to be more corporate minded, they have a bigger salary, their medical practices are more at risk. They get letters from the king of this planet saying that if you talk about anything other than the medicine, or if you talk about how the medicine might have some attributes of poison, you'll lose your doctor's license to practice and you'll be screwed. So most of the doctors are just going along on this planet with this lie that the poison is really medicine. But the nurses see it. They see it. You know, if anybody can check to see if I'm wrong, there is no test for the Delta variant. I think we're being massively gaslit. They're just theoretically looking at symptoms and saying, oh, it comes out of India or it comes out of South America, so we're going to give it a letter. But there's no test. They can't draw blood and say, yep, shake it up, put it in the centrifuge, there's the Delta variant. Nope, they can't do that. All they can say is, we're theorizing based on computer models that this is a new variant and we're naming it the Delta variant. But in reality, nobody knows. And what's happening now, it seems, people who take the medicine, if they come down with something horrible within 2 weeks, they say that you didn't have the medicine and it was actually the disease that killed you.
They do these mental gymnastics about finding ways. And again, for the YouTube censorship crap, you know, we're not doctors. We're not giving medical advice. Do whatever your doctor recommends and all. We're talking about the lack of information that is just not being made available. And that causes a natural suspicion, because if you're not being honest and when you're changing the narrative every 5 seconds, Joe Biden said months ago, just a few months ago, that it would not be mandatory. And now he's saying that it is. I mean, how on earth are you going to be trusting that man on anything he says at all? He bombed, he droned a poor guy that was unloading bottles of water, Matt, just to justify, like, we had a response for the attack on the airport. Yeah. It was just it's in Fox News this morning. They droned a guy that was unloading bottles of water and killed a bunch of little kids.
And we have the pictures. And the guy was even an aide, worked for an NGO as an aid worker for the United States. So the irony on top of it, and killing children. But a few days before that, the Pentagon said that they droned 2 ISIS-K planners in eastern Afghanistan in some ISIS stronghold. You know, immediately, you know, they didn't know what would happen after they left Bagram. They didn't know Taliban's ready to take over the country.
Trying to save face.
But somehow they know automatically where ISIS-K planners are. Yeah. So they haven't.
What the hell is ISIS-K? ISIS-K? They made that up. ISIS-K.
Theoretically, it's the ISIS of Afghanistan. But it's really, you know, you can look at it in many ways. You can say, well, the Taliban hates them and crushes them whenever they find them. But another way of looking at it is it's what you call a cat's paw. Sometimes China would use North Korea as a cat's paw because it gives them deniability. Oh, we're really sorry about that act of terror. That wasn't us. We don't do that. That was ISIS-K, right? But they're all these guys are all intermixing. But the thing about the 2 planners that were hit with a Hellfire missile, they haven't, and they won't say the names of these guys. They should be happy and willing to say these are the names of the ISIS-K planners, because if you are looking at some village that's a ISIS-K stronghold, theoretically, the vehicle that drives out of the compound does not have a sign on the roof that says visible from a Predator drone ISIS K planners, right? It doesn't say that on the roof. ISIS K planners. So you had to know the names of these guys and be following them to know who walked out of the building, got into a vehicle, and then you hit it with hellfire.
And
so what are their
usually,
names?
yeah, usually they will have like the most wanted list, number 5 on the most wanted list, and they give you a name. So that gives them like extra cookie points of like, we got him, we got our guy. They didn't get anyone. They just did God knows what.
But they definitely got a whole family in Kabul, though.
Yeah, that was terrible.
And they even totally flat out lied. Milley lied, and the admiral, the former admiral, Kirby, they absolutely looked at the camera and said, "Oh, there were secondary explosions."
Yeah,
there's no secondary explosions. You can tell it's from one hellfire hit because there's forensic damage, on walls and doors, things like that. There's no secondary explosion. It was water.
It was trying to save face after being attacked as they were leaving in the manner they were leaving, which is a complete embarrassment. They try to save face with this even more disgraceful, blowing up a family. I mean, these last few weeks have been terrible. The amount of damage, the amount of censorship we're seeing all across, the media pulling this bullshit about everything is BLM, everything is about race. It's unbearable. In the censorship just drives you nuts. And on top of this idea that you no longer, there's a comment here, Rogue Sovereign Mind says, wrong, many will not comply, Fernando. Look, it is painful. No one likes to admit it, but the amount of people that will comply for this is overwhelming. There's going to be people that hold on. There's going to be people that hold fast, but people don't want to lose it. It's the same thing. Following orders. We've seen this a million times. It's basic human nature. People don't want to lose their jobs, their pensions. I mean, who's going to be, if you have a family to feed and you're getting fired and you're not getting
there's a lot of more aspects of this. And there's a sense of desperation on the side of the on this planet, in the science fiction book we're talking about. On this other planet where they're forcing everybody to take a medicine that's really poison, okay? There's an aspect of this, which is that the medical personnel are a key linchpin. So are truckers and some other areas of the economy. They can fire half the people at like a big department store, like on this planet, like Walmart, and then they just have to like have less people, people on the floor, and service will go down. But a hospital can't run without a certain number of nurses. This is why they're coming out with this bogus story that the hospitals are just so full of this mystery disease that it's not true. There aren't enough nurses.
Yeah.
There's no beds. You can't have a bed without a nurse. So you need X nurses for X beds. If 20% of X nurses have quit, then you've got to close off wards, because you can't just tell a nurse, oh, instead of doing 4 beds, you're going to do 10 beds. You can't do it. So the narrative is failing. People that are going outside of Gulag Yankee Tango for their videos are seeing the truth. And there are many amazing videos. Like there's a guy, Stu Peters, has had a lot of these medical people, like not just the famous ones we know of, like Robert Malone and Michael Yaden, but actual nurses from the wards that are reporting what they're seeing. And it seems like a lot of what they're calling the D version are poison medicine side effects.
Yeah.
And they're misclassifying them. And these are people that already had the medicine on this fictional science fiction planet.
Matt, what's your opinion on this? Because this is gonna be either making it or breaking it in terms of you've gotten your orders, you have to comply. What's your percentage of people that will comply for this? I mean, because this goes for the military, this goes for any business that has over 100 employees.
Well, the 100 employees is just a number pulled out of the air. If they can do 100, they can do 10 or do it for one self-employed guy.
Yeah,
this is an abdication of Congress. It's basically like a Hitler enabling act. After Hitler is elected as chancellor with only like a third of the vote.
Hmm.
He just assumed all this power and the Reichstag gave it to him. He wrote after the Reichstag fire, they did an enabling act, and basically the German Congress, the German Reichstag just said, whatever Hitler wants, that's the law. And we're now in a situation where if you can on this mystery planet, totally fictional, once the king's oligarch buddies can fake elections, nothing is off the table. Once you can steal elections and then have the media backstop your lies, have social media backstop your lies and ban anybody from talking about it, then there's nothing off the table. But in terms of the nurses won't take it because they can't feed their family if they're dead. Okay? They can't take care of their small children. A lot of nurses, active nurses, have small children. Nurses are right in the thick of it a couple years out of nursing school, right? Whether it's a 3-year program or a 4-year program. A 30-year-old nurse has children from toddlers to toddlers on up. A nurse 30, 40 years old. They can't feed their children if they're dead. And this is not a theoretical thing. This isn't like, we're talking about a science fiction novel set on a distant planet. But these nurses in this fictional novel, they know I can't take care of my family if I'm dead. And they also know not all of the colonies on this planet are exactly the same. If I get fired from one hospital, I can pack up my minivan and move to another colony where they'll be happy to hire me, because nurses are getting emails every day offering them a fortune to sign up and relocate to another hospital with or without the medicine.
Right. In those places, they don't have to. They don't have to get it if they go to these places specifically, because I thought it was like nation, planet wide. Let's call it that way.
They're trying to, but some of the colonies on this planet, the governor generals of some colonies have said that they will not enforce the king's order that everyone must take the medicine / poison. And so there's a looming battle between the king of the planet and the governor generals of the colonies over forcing people to take it. And it goes also for what they call a medicine passport, where they're trying to enforce not being able to go into a sporting event or a department store or even get on an airplane without the medicine passport. And some of the governor generals are saying we're not doing that in the States. We're setting up a big conflict. And that another aspect of this, it's now extending down to children, because this medicine / poison, it's very evil. There's a thing on another planet called the Nuremberg Code, which goes all the way back to the late 1940s after a global planetary war on this planet, where they said you can't force people or coerce people to take an experimental medicine, and coercion includes like take it or lose your job. That is Nuremberg Code, first line of Nuremberg Code. If you coerce people to taking something that might hurt them, after the Nuremberg Code, they said that's out. And they hanged some of those people on that planet for doing things like this, forcing experiments. Another area is people are concerned that the companies that are making this medicine / poison have immunity. Immunity, you have to understand something very important. Immunity is not absolute. You can think that it is in 2021, but if in 2025 it turns out that millions of people were damaged by this, there's a concept in the law called vitiation or vitiation. I'm not even sure how you pronounce it, but it's spelled VITIATES. And it basically means like annulling or voiding. If somebody makes a contract, if you sign a contract, but one of the people signing the contracts paid an inspector, for example, to say that the house's roof and foundation are good, but the inspector was paid and the inspector knew the roof was falling down and the foundation was, ready to be a sinkhole, and you can prove that the person that signed the contract paid the inspector to lie, then the contract is off. It's annulled. Okay. Fraud annuls immunity too. If it turns out that there was pressure put on this mythical planet, their administration in charge of drugs and food, for example, on this planet, if it turns out that there was, bribery, corruption, between the corporations that make the medicine and the politicians that are pushing the medicine, and there were promises and payments.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now. In America, we not only have on television all day and all night drug ads, half of the commercials on TV are drug ads, but you also have a huge percentage, which is so ironic, saying from lawyers, national lawyer firms saying, if you took, medicine drug XYZ in the 1980s, you may be entitled to compensation. So we're going back decades and doing class action lawsuits over bad drugs or asbestos in the workplace, things like that. And the companies have to pay out, and companies, it's ruinous, billions of dollars. So don't think it's hopeless. I just have to take it. I have to take the medicine / poison and they have immunity. I'll never know. If there are millions of people damaged, especially if it's children, they're now showing these studies.
12-year-olds. My God.
Yeah, they have more of heart damage by far than the risk from the original illness, by far. And we don't even know what's going to happen with pregnant mothers, but we know for women, there's a lot of terrible things going on where you have long postmenopausal women, like women in their 70s and 80s having periods, okay, or extreme level of miscarriages. These are signs that something with the female fertility is going haywire from this.
Yeah, but you're immediately told that it's not associated. That's the line they go. Like, anything bad happens to you, they go like, oh yeah, but that's not associated with it. How do?
Well, that's another reason why they want everybody to take the medicine, because they want to be able to blame everything on the disease and not the medicine. See, they're going, if everybody takes the medicine and then there's a birth defects, for example, they're going to say, well, we didn't know it, but that's like a third order variant of the mu lambda variant of the illness. Has nothing to do with the perfectly wonderful medicine. But if there's half of the country that took the medicine and they're the only ones with the birth defects, and half of the country didn't take it, and those birth defects and things like Bell's palsy, these Guillain-Barré syndrome, which are like 1 in a million diseases. If suddenly something that's a 1 in a million disease is now 1 in 1,000, and it's permanent and it's crippling, and it only occurs among people that took the medicine, then what are they going to say? Well, in that case, you can have a population rise up in such anger when the politicians say, wait a minute, there was immunity. We were in emergency. Other politicians will dig in and find the corruption. When there's a big corruption trial, the first guys to blow the whistle get immunity from prosecution. So you'll have people on the administration of drugs and food saying, look, there was bribery involved. There was pressure involved. We would have never approved this medicine, but those guys did something corrupt. They're going to pay for it. It doesn't matter if it's years from now. When there's birth defects or crippling diseases among children, the anger is going to be like a tsunami.
Yeah. But, I mean, and it's really not even just because of YouTube compliance and all that bullshit. But what really pisses me off is the lack of freedom. Because let's suppose that this is fantastic. And Matt, I'm not even kidding. Let's suppose this works perfectly well. Where is your right to decide that you just don't want to get treatment for something that has less problems than the ordinary flu?
Yeah,
when did we start?
Yeah, and the only comparison that they make is very lame, and people should be aware of it. There, in 1905 or so, there was in a couple states, it was mandatory to take the smallpox medicine. But smallpox is completely different than a coronavirus. Smallpox only existed among humans. It evolved among humans going back into ancient times. It only existed among humans. And if you wiped it out of humans, it couldn't come back because it wasn't from bats, it wasn't from pigs. It was just a human disease.
It wasn't from a Chinese lab.
Yeah, and the fine for it was like $5, which today would be like $150. So and this law was in existence for a very short time. It was nothing like the whole country mandating you will lose your job if you don't take an experimental synthetic spike protein injection. It migrates through your body and turns your body into converting it into making these little spike proteins that gives you clots and aneurysms, all kind of heart disease, everything. It's a horrible thing. And people are learning how terrible this is. There's going to be a payback for this. And I want to talk a little bit about the military because the military are definitely included under that federal federal employees, and the word is going out that the military has had on the books for a long time that you have to take all of the legal approved vaccines in order to deploy. You can't go to Africa or the Middle East. It used to be Afghanistan. I guess we're not going there anymore. But you couldn't get on the airplane with the rest of your buddies and fly to the middle of Africa to meddle in some country somewhere unless you were fully jabbed. And the catch was it couldn't be an experimental medicine. 20, 30 years ago, when the anthrax vaccines were in like a gray area in the military that I was familiar with, if you were told you had to take it, you could go to see a corpsman or a medic that you knew personally, a personal relationship. And he might just say, do you want this in your arm or somewhere else? And you say somewhere else. He shoots it in the air, it disappears, and he writes that you've gotten it because he's one of your friends. He understands the risk involved. But now what they're doing is they're doing this in a much more Soviet totalitarian way where they're bringing in teams of outside people. And they're doing it like a line of sheep, where like boot camp style, where there's no avoiding it. Yeah. And it's not your friend, the medic or corpsman. It's some guy you never met before. And you don't even know what's in the vial. So you don't even know really what's in that vial. Like they're playing a 3-card Monte game. This is going back to that planet where the one that they supposedly recently approved is not the same one as they have ordered hundreds of millions of doses from the first company whose name begins with P. Yeah. So they said, the new one, which starts with a C, it's actually made in Germany and it's not available. But they're saying since the one that begins with C is kind of just like the one that we already have 100 million doses for, you have to take the one that we have 100 million doses for. So if you're as your last ditch appeal, when they say it's approved, so you have to take it, then say, I want to see the vial. Does it say C, made in the factory in Germany, or does it say P, made in the factory in America like 6 months ago? It's already obsolete. It's like the key for a lock that's been changed. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many times you get it. All you're going to get is adverse side effects because it's not going to help cure a disease or prevent a disease because the disease has mutated. All you're going to get is the poison effect. Yeah. The likeliness of getting, it's gotten to a point where it's hard to believe that's going on. But I keep reading because I check on the gun forums, on the survival forums, and all I see is people that, man, I'm going to be losing my job if I don't get it. And usually it's, don't get it, do get it. And it's I would say that in most cases people just fold. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah, you can't take care of your kids if you're dead. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why the nurses are leading the resistance If it was safe, they'd be first to take it. If they see what's going on, it's why nurses are leading the resistance.
Roger,
most of the doctors are sold out. They want it. They can't. They're thinking, I can't lose my medical.
I'm not going to be losing my license. Yeah, exactly.
A doctor who's built up a practice and he's
making a fortune.
He's making good money. He's also got privileges at a certain hospital within a certain hospital corporation, or maybe he has a clinic and he's paid $1 million for all of the kind of technological equipment. He can't throw that all into a minivan and move to another colony like a nurse can. So a nurse has much more flexibility than an MD. And I want to mention also in the military context. Oh, before I get onto that for the nurses, there's a great video I saw. A nurse goes to work. She's been told, don't come to work. She goes to work, tries to, punch in with her card. It's rejected. They send her supervisor down. They send security down. They say, you don't work here anymore. And she says, oh, have I been terminated? No, you just don't work here anymore. So that's very legal that if you're fired, you can demand a termination letter. See, they're trying to just make this a gray area so they can say she quit. If you quit, you've got nothing to stand on. Demand a termination letter. And you can find online letters that have the risks, that list the risks. Demand that your boss sign the letter. The boss is demanding you take an experimental jab. You demand of the boss that he signs a page with the risks, known risks. He won't sign it. But force them to terminate you officially. Don't just let them do this double talk as you go out to your car. Now, because they're going to then say the nurse quit.
That you quit. But I was reading that it's like a justified termination because you didn't comply, and you don't even get to file for unemployment if they fire you for not getting it.
But you'll need the letter. The letter will be huge ammunition in the coming class action lawsuits, because when it's shown that this was a dangerous product and they knew it, it doesn't matter. Immunity will be swept away. Immunity will be like, the rain on the desert and then the sun comes out. Immunity will be gone because people will be so angry. Politicians will find the witnesses that say there was corruption and fraud involved in this process. That means immunity's gone. Immunity, that's like saying the asbestos company had immunity because it was the war and we just had to put workers in the asbestos factory or the mine or the ship or the factory building. No, that will be gone. When it shows they knew it was going to hurt their workers and they didn't care, immunity's gone. So get ammunition for the future. Make them fire you. Force them to give you a letter that says why you were terminated. Don't just let them say, you know the deal. You didn't agree. You have to leave now, Sally. No, Sally says no. Look at the video.
What's it called? Do you remember the name?
Yeah, I can look at it real quick.
Sure. Yeah, man. I read many of those threads, and people they just. I mean, most of the people that fold, I get it. They see themselves in these situations, but
yeah, it's called. This is Sunday, September 12th, and you have to go to some fairly shaky websites, but because the local news in almost every, even small town, the local news might as well be an affiliate of CNN. I turn on my local Florida news, and it's like, a new medicine site is set up. It's free. They'll give you $100. Everybody that's happy Matt, is going to take it.
What about I regret not getting it. His last dying breath was
right. Exactly.
I'm such a stupid conservative white supremacist. Man, listen to him. Listen to those that know.
Here, search for this, and it's called. The website is called SurviveTheNews.com. All one word, survivethenews.com/Kentucky Health Workers. And anyway, the title is Kentucky Health Care Workers refused to comply with vegetable mandate, forced hospital to fire them, and it includes videos and the transcripts. You can tell those hospital administrators, they do not want to say you're fired. They're doing everything, every mental gymnastic. Oh, come on, Sally, be reasonable. You didn't agree with the policy. Now you have to leave. And she's saying, am I fired? They won't say the words, and she's recording it. This is the tactic that you have to take. You force them to fire you. It'll be important later. And it also jams up their legal system when they know they're going to be answering. A lot of these companies fold on the mandate because you have to make it more of a pain in the ass that they're going to lose half of their workers than complying. They may say, you know what, I'd rather fight the government than fight half of my employees. You know, it's just good. Either way, they're going to get attacked, either from above or below. So at a certain point, the corporate board has to be forced to say, let's go against the mandate. That'll be less trouble than trying to fire half of our people.
Do you know what the deadline is? Any idea when this actually, is?
It's different. It's usually an end of month. And I've people are saying, like, for some people, it's like September 31 or October 30. But it varies on the company. But remember, more and more information is coming out, and it's becoming more and more untenable to force this on people. I mean, just as they're trying to give it to children, news is coming out about the damage it does to children. And just wait for birth defects. You know, if it's causing miscarriages and postmenopausal women,
give it a year. Like they would say, like in 2 weeks, this is going to be terrible in 2 weeks. Give it a year and see the effects of these pregnant women when they actually give birth to these kids, how they're doing, because it's going to be.
But even in the military, make them fire you, and do everything you can to verify it. And this is the last subject that I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
serendipitous. Guys, subscribe to the channel, to Matt's channel, because that would be awesome as well.
Yeah, I've only got like 5 or 6 videos, and they're a couple of years old, but I don't
really subscribe nonetheless.
Anyway, yes, always subscribe. And look up that article, because it shows what a brave nurse can do, recording while these administrators are trying to railroad her, threatening to drag her out physically. But without saying the word "you're fired." They're such cowards. They're bullies and cowards. So you have to just constantly fight and resist. Don't just quietly quit. And if possible, make them sign something. Anyway, there's almost we know how in medicine, we know how the virus works. It invades a cell, and then it takes over, it hijacks a cell, right? It forces your healthy cell to reproduce virus. Well, what happens in a top-down command and control structure or hierarchy? If the very top, the pilot of the airplane, turns out to be a traitor, or turns out to be blackmailed, if you don't fly this airplane into the ground or into the ocean like an Egypt air pilot did, like 15 or 20 years ago, if you don't fly this airplane into the ground, we're going to wipe out your family, or whatever the threat could be. If you have a top-down structure, especially like the military, how did they happen to not only botch the withdrawal from Afghanistan, but do it in a way that left hostages behind, which means we have no leverage because they can harm our hostages, and we left the biometric data on all of the people that work for America so they can be punished, meaning not only in Afghanistan will our allies be genocided, but who in the rest of the world will work for America now? You'd have to be crazy. If Green Berets land in Central Africa and are talking to the headman about, working against the local ISIS in Sahara group, the local headman's going to say, "Get the hell out. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I'll work for you, and then you'll give the data to ISIS."
Hmm.
I mean,
So
it's global. The damage is global from this. How can
the
you be a
damage,
special forces training team anywhere now, or any kind of a group? Who would
damage to
work
the
for us?
image, damage to the image, damage to the reputation. I mean, if you cannot hold your word in these sort of things, if people cannot trust you anymore, then it's game over. I mean,
So the same people, the same generals who went along, nobody resigned. You know, an honorable person, if Milley had honor, if Austin had honor, as soon as Biden said, I'm holding you to less than 2,000 people to do the withdrawal, they said, well, that means we have to give up Bagram. No, they should have said, sorry, we can't do this withdrawal. We have thousands of Americans, we have allies, we have green card holders. It's going to take this many months. We're going to have to surge people in just to cover the retreat. When the Russians left Afghanistan after 10 years, I think they had like 60,000 troops in Afghanistan. They had to surge more troops in just to cover their withdrawal.
right.
You know, and they had to do it in a very, carefully calculated way until they drove over a bridge into like Uzbekistan or somewhere that used to be part of the Soviet Union. You know, it was contiguous Afghanistan to USSR. It's a lot easier. There's a bridge, but we had an air bridge at Bagram. Bagram was our bridge, and by giving that up, we basically said, hey, Taliban, you will control every aspect of our withdrawal. You can humiliate us. You can drop shells on the runway. You can do anything you want. You can let a bomber through, or you can, don't let any of our translators through, but let Taliban through. Any Taliban that speaks English, head to the airport. Tell the brother guarding the airport, hey, I've been sent to go to America. Wink, wink. You're in, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know who got on those airplanes. The Taliban controlled it. Well, how can you have a series of mistakes, 100 mistakes in a row that all hurt America? You know, if you had flipped 100 coins and they all landed on heads, would you in a carnival at a fair, right? You were some game of chance at a carnival.
Yeah.
And the carny, every time he rolls the dice, it wins for him and loses for you 100 times in a row. Would you say, well, I guess I'm just bad at rolling the dice, Elmer. Let's go back to the farm. No, You'd say the carny is rigged. If everything that happened since Biden came in hurts America, everything. And we know that his son followed him to China, got a multi-billion-dollar deal where his cut of handling the money is millions per year. Now, you know what kind of a person Hunter was. He's a whoremonger, a drug addict. You think China didn't know that? You don't think they set him up in China?
Yeah.
Or they've got recordings of Hunter and his father saying, Dad, this is going to mean $5 million a month for us. You don't think that they've got blackmail control on him? If everything he's done for 8 months hurts America, are we that stupid that we're at the carny watching the carny just win a game of chance, 100 throws in a row? Well, he's just really lucky, I guess.
Gunter hiding artwork for sale. He's selling his artwork for millions of dollars. It's like a child's, like a stupid child's, mess of color.
Like spin art. So to the military directly. I don't pull this out because I wasn't in combat. I was in Beirut. There was no combat for me. But this was not given to you by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. All right. This was not given to you by the president, whether it was Bush or Obama or Reagan. Yeah. This was given to you by the military, by your brothers. All right. When you went to BUDS or you went to the Special Forces qualification course, when you got the Green Beret or the Trident or your jump wings, that was given to you by your fellow warriors. The people that approved it were not somebody in Washington. The people that said you're good enough to be one of us were your brothers. So the people in Washington can't take it away. It's a matter of honor. They can say you can't wear it on your uniform, you're out of the military, what have you, but they can't really take it because they are the dishonorable ones. They're the scoundrels. They took over the airplane and flew it into the ground on purpose. where that's not even, they didn't fly it into the ground. They put a bomb on the airplane. If they would take more guts to actually fly it into the ground.
Yeah.
General Custer, General Custer was at the Battle of Bighorn, right? I mean, he didn't like phone it in, charge 10,000 Sioux, and I'll call you tomorrow.
These scumbags saying that they want to get woked up and that thanking them for getting their cultural agenda, the woke nonsense, the BLM.
And you can see now, George W. Bush, he is fully on the team with Obama and Biden and all of the rest of those scumbags. Yeah. And they are literally coming for us. They think, hey, now that we're out of Afghanistan, we can turn our attention, all these tools, all these weapons, the facial recognition, the biometrics, everything. We can turn it against our real enemy, which is us.
The American people. Yeah.
So when you are considering taking this medicine / poison or not, because you're being ordered to, you're being ordered by the same people that carried out the Afghanistan disaster on purpose. If they said, I order you to march into an artillery impact zone, and then they called the division and ordered an artillery barrage, that's in essence what they're doing. They know this causes myocarditis in healthy young adults. Who makes up the military? Those 13 that died in Kabul, what was their average age? Like 19, 20?
Yeah, 20. Something like that, I guess.
Even if you are a triathlete, a marathon runner, and you get enough myocarditis from this poison to damage your heart 2% or 5%, that takes you out of the Olympics, right? You're done. What if it's 10%? Well, if you're just a fat couch potato, you might not notice. So it might be, but it's like you had a heart attack. The damage to your heart is like that you suffered and survived a heart attack. What does this tell you about our leadership, that they want to do this to our military? If China was running the White House, what would they do differently? I mean, how would they do? What would they do different if China could just pick up the phone and call Susan Rice and Obama and say, this is what we want the figurehead president to say tomorrow? What would be different? Everything he's done is ordering troops into minefields. You don't have any moral obligation, no matter of honor, to obey these people. The entire organization has been taken over by traitors that are intentionally wrecking the entire organization. That goes for nurses at the hospital. That goes for everybody in the military. And if people just quit, and all of the casualties in all of our wars have predominantly been people like us. Not, I mean, we're talking Scots, Irish, hillbillies, Texas, field well up, cowboys. If they quit the military, who's going to fight their wars? The pink-haired trannies?
Well, Matt, unfortunately, I think there's enough traitors for them to do a lot of damage. Look at what happened with the Black Rifle Coffee Company. These guys are setting a difference between the military loyal to the regime and your fat redneck Second Amendment loser that is LARPing, that is just a wannabe. He's not a real special ops guy like the Black Rifle Coffee CIA freak. That guy is, each time I hear him, he's shady as hell. That guy is operating for these interests, no doubt whatsoever. And those are the guys that are going to be selling you out, stabbing you in the back. These guys.
And they are consistently. And this team tyranny thinks that they can do this all by long range, drone strikes. Yeah. And which is really good at diffusing the responsibility, because one group comes up with a hit list, but they don't actually drop a hellfire on anybody. They give it to another person and they just say, this is a dangerous terrorist. We've got to put a hellfire through his roof. And that person goes, okay, good. Somebody in Texas probably is a dangerous domestic extremist.
White supremacist with guns. Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, in the meantime, before we get to drone strikes, when it comes to OSHA agents going around to companies demanding a list of who's been given the poison or not, I think that it's going to be possible to discourage these people severely, because they've got to actually get in cars and drive around. And if enough if enough companies say, F you, we're not complying. They all took it. Everybody has it, go away. Well, we need to see the proof. Oh yeah, come on into the back room. I'll show you the proof.
Yeah.
Come into the storeroom. The proof's back here. Come with me. It's like Copperhead Road, you know.
I like to see how many people actually go with this or not, or fold or not, because I don't know. It's putting yourself in the boots of some of these people, and based on what I'm reading, someone was saying I don't understand. Man, I understand more than you think. You can watch the threads on the different forums, the different gun forums, the different prepper survival forums, the more conservative outlets out there, and you see people, man, I have to get it today. If I have to get it this week, because if not, I get fired. And a lot of people are folding. They're not holding the line, and it's unfortunate.
They can fold, but if enough people, it's like friction. It's like sand in the gears.
How many people do you think it's going to be needed for us to make a difference? Because of course it's going to be some
places are more critical than others. If it's truckers or nurses, it doesn't take a big percentage. If it's like greeters at Walmart, they could get new greeters tomorrow. Sure. But if it's truckers and nurses, the hospital shuts down, and they can't maintain this lie that they're all full of COVID. Of Delta variant, wink, wink. Oh, everybody's catching the Delta variant and having a stroke a week after they got the medicine.
Yeah,
boy, that's the word is getting around.
The speech, Joe Biden's speech, was such a disgrace for the entire country. I was listening to the man. I'm running out of patience. Who the fuck are you to?
If they can do that
and scare people like that,
they can do anything. If they get away with that, that means we have no Supreme Court, we have no Congress, no balance of powers. We're just the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany with a fake Reichstag, with a fake Duma, a fake judges that just.
I've been patient enough. I've been patient enough with you people. Who the hell are you?
Yeah, our patience is wearing thin, and the absolute 1984 level of doublethink. We have to protect the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. Wait a minute.
Wasn't it supposed to be right? So it's not stopping you from getting it. It's not stopping you from spreading it. It was supposed to protect you from, in a very selfish way. It was supposed to protect you specifically, and now you need protection from those that didn't get it.
And they've even changed the definition from where it prevents the infection to just turns it down a little bit. That's the new definition of the vegetable.
Yeah.
And somebody just said they recently lost their job, and I'm sorry.
Man,
to save our freedom, we're going to have to probably give up some comfort and tighten the belt and support each other. The guys that haven't lost their jobs, we're going to need to set up at a community level a support network to the liberals do this. They when somebody gets fired for teaching communism, he gets another job at some communist think tank tomorrow, right? Even if he doesn't do anything, they pay him. We need to take care of our own in that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know we're after the time, and I know you got.
No, go ahead. Don't worry. No, I don't have anything else coming because there's elections in Argentina, so don't worry. We can go for as long as we want. Well, there's elections going on there.
I just want to mention while I was getting ready to do this. This is we don't do Patreon, we don't do PayPal.
Read Matt's books because they're fantastic and they're way ahead of their time.
We do our own books. Even invisible books.
That's the expensive one with the LED camouflage that has cameras on the back.
This is the coolest thing. I have actually the invisible magazines. Look at that.
Yeah, get plenty of these. I got just a few of these Magpul ones. They're not very good. I mean, they're supposed to be okay. The Magpul ones for Glock, they're cheap. They're very affordable. They're like $15 a piece. I don't know How much is it that these cost right now over there? Like magazines for Glock and that sort of thing.
I haven't been shopping for magazines. I'm all magged up.
Hmm.
I'm even old school. I've got these old
Yeah, 20 rounders.
the nostalgia.
Those are
When you
nice.
want to get really close to the ground, right?
Yeah, yeah. Are good ones.
This is
Yeah,
a range signal. But
yeah,
yeah, we're in some dire times, and I don't think that anybody in a command structure where the leadership is either sold out, blackmailed, cowards, and they're telling you call good things bad things, call poisons medicines, and you're not allowed to mention actual medicines or you'll be fired.
yeah.
We're in a time where you don't owe these people any loyalty. You owe them no loyalty. You owe
Yeah.
loyalty to the country and your family and your community and your church. That's who you owe loyalty to.
Who's gonna be signing up for the military with these people calling the shots? What kind of person's gonna be serving right now, knowing that these guys are gonna be sending you to do God knows what, and they're gonna be asking of you to get shot with whatever crap they feel is necessary? I don't know. The speech was terrible.
I want to read. I meant to do this before. I
Sure.
want to read a Michael Yon quote, if I can find this. Michael Yon is awesome. He is really amazing. He was a special forces guy, but been a journalist for like 25 years, 30 years. Been in something like 100 countries. So this is what he wrote right after the fall of Kabul airport. Said we need to do a general side, but I don't mean kill them.
Yeah.
We need to fire every flag officer in the U.S. military, every general, every admiral, reserve and active. Get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
Promote colonels and lieutenant colonels to their positions. And if they can't do it, start firing them. We'll get down to the lieutenants sooner or later. We'll do this like the Civil War. We'll have 30-year-old generals. That's what it's going to take, because the generals that we've got now that are all approved by the Senate, Obama purged the conservatives. All that's left are these woke idiots like Mark White Rage Milley teaching critical race theory at West Point, putting communists in West Point as professors. If your ship, the captain of the ship is, they snuck in a traitor.
That Milley guy, where does that man come from? Because he's an older man, and he's talking like a blue haired 15-year-old lesbian. That loser. How on earth did that man become a general of the U.S. military?
I don't know. And he's a tabbed ranger, special forces, all of this. But people change. I remember Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham. I was living in South Carolina, couple decades ago, and he ran during the original Tea Party coming along. It was when Newt Gingrich came in and was speaker. His TV ad said, "I'm just a country lawyer. I'm going up to that swamp." I don't think they call it the swamp yet, but I'm going up to that swamp to clean it out, and I'm going to term limit myself, because term limits was another thing they were talking about. I'm going to term limit myself. I'm going to do two-year tour in Washington, and I'm coming right back to my beloved South Carolina. He's a military JAG officer, Judge Advocate General, in reserves. So he goes up to Washington. Well, it's nice when people are throwing rose petals in front of you and kissing you, and everywhere you turn, there's you can stick your hand into a bowl full of shrimp cocktail. Champagne's being poured over here.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, it's like, oh, here's your courtesy.
It's nice. Yeah.
Your special parking. Oh, we've got a valet to take you to the airport. Oh, we got a trip to Hawaii next week to check out the volcanoes. Wink, wink. It's seductive.
Yeah.
People get seduced, and the honorable ones get weeded out. The best counterpoint would be this Lieutenant Colonel Scheller from the Marine Corps. He's the only one that was held responsible because he said, "I want accountability."
And he fired him, right?
Right. The shellers get weeded out. The shellers don't make
Oh,
colonel,
man.
or if they make colonel, they definitely don't get a star. They don't make general or admiral. The ones that get the higher up you go, the worse they filter out the patriots, and they bring in just the swamp creatures. And these are guys that never took risks in their whole career, because in like what they call now a zero defect military, your fitness reports for an officer have to be perfect. If some of your men crash a vehicle and somebody gets killed because they were doing like really very realistic nighttime, night vision training, whatever, that can blemish your record. So it's much safer to just get rid of the realistic training, keep everything safe, and become a yes man. And the further up the chain it goes, the worse it gets, to where they're not hearing in the White House that Afghanistan is a looming disaster. Everybody is putting on rose-colored glasses. Every intelligence report gets filtered and turned down until they're hearing what they want to hear at the top.
We're making progress. We're making progress. They have those punchlines, or those quotes that they spread on little emails and repeat these sentences, repeat these. Progress is being made. Bullshit. 20 years, and what progress are you looking at?
And nobody will tell the truth. And that's why Michael Yon is absolutely correct. They need to fire all the admirals and generals. Just fire them all.
In what job do you screw up like that and not get one single person fired? In what company or job do you screw up 20 years of operations and not a single head rose?
But the real shot callers, who I would say are Susan Rice and Obama, to them, this isn't screwing up. See, this is perfect because no matter what they do, catastrophically, disastrously, who will be blamed? The idiot who doesn't know what he's reading, named Joe Biden. So Joe Biden can crash the economy. He can cause hyperinflation. Everything he does will be a disaster, and all the blame will be fixed to him. In the background, Susan Rice and Obama are laughing. They believe, and I absolutely believe this to my bone marrow, because I know people like this. I have for ever since, decades and decades. They think that America as the lone superpower is terrible, that it's time for China or other countries to be on an equal footing. And America needs to be brought down many levels. And this disaster in Afghanistan to Obama is like clinking champagne time. For his mission, which is when it comes to the push comes to shove, I'll always stand with my Muslim brothers. Remember, he said that. And in his book, he was totally a Marxist in his so-called autobiography.
His father,
written by Bill Ayers, but he's a communist. He thinks a sovereign superpower, free America, is terrible, and they've just crashed part of it, and now they're going to crash the economy. They want it wrecked so that it can never come back what it was. Argentina used to be one of the richest countries in the world. And once it went down the socialist path, it gets so wrecked that you can't fix it. You can't take a Swiss watch, chop it up with an axe, kick all the broken pieces in a vial of acid, and then say, whoops, we changed our mind. Let's pour all the pieces of the broken watch out of the acid and put it back together. No. It took a long time to build this country, but it can be wrecked in a way it can't be fixed.
It's always easier to destroy. It's always easier to destroy than to build something. And the economy is being wrecked. And the price of food is going to be going up next year. Is going to be terrible. And inflation is already damaging a lot. Everything is going up in price. Everything is super expensive. Someone was mentioning
Jay Mackey, Six Frontman, said we need more Pinochets. We're not a country like Chile in 1973, backed by the CIA, where the military absolutely hated Allende, the communist, and the people he brought in. You had the entire military of Chile just ready to smash the communists, and they did.
Yeah.
Our military now is much more likely to turn their guns against us.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no Pinochet. The best you can hope for is some states will do better than other states, and you'll have to move to one of those states. If you were parachuted into Texas in 1870, just randomly parachuted in. You'd better get to a settlement full of Texans. If you just are wandering around Texas in 1870, you're going to lose your scalp, all right? You are going to or be turned into a slave, or used for a torture festival game where they see how long they can keep you alive. You can't endure in enemy territory. We're the enemy now. They've told us. They are telling us every day.
Worse than terrorists. You're worse than terrorists.
We're the Taliban. January 6th was just as bad as 9/11, and now we're worse. So they are telling us they're coming for us. And there's a lot of reports coming out of the upper Midwest about very strange military drills going on. And some of them might be normal and some of them might not be. But in the rumor category, it sounds like they're gearing up for a new outbreak. Okay? Something so bad that they're going to have to send in the troops and really do the full, like the movie Outbreak, Dustin Hoffman, where they just have to cordon off a whole state, with people in hazmat suits.
Good movie, by the way.
We're probably getting close to something like a false flag, either a false flag outbreak or some excuse for cracking down. But I don't think it's going to be in a place like Florida or Texas. But I could see it in some place like Idaho or Wyoming for sure. And where they just come in hard, and it's like they turn up, they're going to say, "Oh, thank goodness we got there in the nick of time. We just found a bunch of Timothy McVeighs." And they were just about, "Oh, thank goodness the FBI was on the ball," because we prevented a huge terror outbreak. Or something will blow up and it'll be blamed on, something like the Wisconsin situation, where it was all FBI and a couple knuckleheads that were blamed for being these wanting to be terrorists. But we're gearing up for something like that. I can feel it.
Making an operation about kidnapping, I don't know who, and it was 90% of the guys were FBI, and it was one dude that had no clue where he was. They make crap up so much, and these guys like the Black Rifle Coffee guys. This guy all of a sudden former CIA, and he has a multi-million coffee company with the support of the government, and he has his pro. He puts money in the pocket of Biden and Hillary Clinton, and he has this anti-Second Amendment narrative. No, we're pro-veteran. That doesn't mean we're pro-Second Amendment. Screw you. What kind of traitor are you, man?
Done with them. Done with Black Rifle Coffee. They're just grifters. They were, pretending. They're pro-military as long as it's the military run by the Millies and the Austins. Screw
backstabbing.
That. No.
Those are worse. Even those are the real traitors, because they try to appeal to a certain community, to the conservative, the gun, and all of a sudden they were, no, we're not on your side, man. We're just, and when they turn on Kyle Rittenhouse, that was disgusting, but that was already a sign of what was to come. Do you know what was going on with Kyle Rittenhouse? Any idea? Any news on that front?
Not a lot coming out. There's a good podcast by Viva Frei, like Live Free, and I guess that's French.
Yeah.
And Robert Barnes, and he's very Robert Barnes is up on it, but he seems like he has better legal counsel now. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but it's obviously something to watch. Andrew McNaughton said, so Idaho, Montana is more at risk than Texas, Florida. I don't know. I'm just putting together a lot of mysterious military movements in the upper Middle West. I don't think that they would be bold enough to come heavy into Florida, because DeSantis might be the kind of guy that says, we're going to stop you right at the Georgia border. We're going to, park fire trucks across the runway.
Yeah.
They're going to probably try it in a state that's not geared up to resist it. A conservative state, but a state where they can just storm into a couple counties,
where they have more support, maybe.
And then claim they've stopped all these militia terrorists.
Yeah.
Something like that is coming. Now, hopefully, hope is not a plan. Anyway, I hope that the FBI has so blown their brand cover. Nobody, obviously the Wisconsin governor kidnapping thing turned out to be completely bogus. all
Yeah.
FBI. And then it's like the same guys after that are sent to Washington, and they're involved in the January 6th Buffalo jump. So definitely, like I say, be the Indian, not the buffalo. Don't be stampeded off a cliff. This January 18th thing, the January 6th protest in Washington, is the most obvious buffalo jump. I'm sure if Stuart Rhodes isn't like hiding in Tahiti or somewhere, he'll be there with the Oath Keepers, talking smack. And it'll be everybody around him is an FBI informant. So
January 6th,
don't be a sucker.
The day that will live in infamy. The day that a guy dressed like a buffalo.
Yeah, Michigan, not Wisconsin. Right. Michigan.
Walked and sat on a desk and took pictures and selfies. And one guy took some documents. And it is so stupid and ridiculous. The idea that was the worst day in American history. It is such a fabrication. They just walked into a place and took a few pictures. That was the worst. I mean, when they were burning entire cities, that was not bad. That was a culturally rich moment. That was okay. Day by day, burning entire blocks or making a separate state within the United States, like was it Chaz? That was not bad. No, it's this nonsense. It is.
The good that comes out of this is it's becoming very obvious to people.
I hope it is.
Not on the left, but it's not to the entire country, because on the left they totally buy the line that January 6th was like 9/11. They believe it.
Worse.
So,
it's even worse.
The country, Matt. What this means is we split mentally and psychologically. Our positions, our narratives are just getting further and further apart. Meanwhile, they are pinning the scapegoat on us. So not only have they been saying ever since Biden came in that we are like just waiting to be domestic terrorists because of our wanting to have our own country with secure borders. That makes
freedom.
us like that makes us racists. But they're going to crash the economy, and then they say you are the unvaccinated. You are like filthy parasite.
It's a pandemic. It's a pandemic
people.
of the. Joe Biden said it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is pinning like a Nazi type of a label on that group, because it's as much as saying, you dirty people.
Yeah,
you are spreading disease. What does that sound like?
Sick. You're making us sick.
Spreading a disease. This is like what they said about some group in Europe about the 1930s.
Yeah.
You are literally spreading a disease. And our patience is wearing thin. It's the same words. Our patience is wearing thin.
It's amazing that we got to this point, but
I would say, look, if you were living in Yugoslavia, and I'm sorry to repeat myself from other shows, but if you were living in Yugoslavia in 1988, you could just get on a train and move from Sarajevo to Slovenia.
Yeah.
Okay. And you never saw the Civil War. You were a neighbor of Melania Trump or somebody. And if you said nothing's going to happen, and you stayed in a apartment building in the middle of Sarajevo, I could walk to my work at the law firm. It's so convenient. Yeah. And then it's called Sniper Alley. Yeah. Get out, move away from the bad places. It's predictable where the fires will be.
Now, I'm curious though about how this is going to be implemented in the states, in the red states, with this mandatory thing. If it gets something that affects you nationwide, if the states hold and find a way of fighting it, or it's still mandatory because it's
while we still have somewhat of a viable legal system. DeSantis in Florida and Abbott in Texas and others, I think 14 or 15 state governors have said, no way, not in my state. They're going the legal route immediately, saying this is completely unconstitutional. We'll have nothing to do with it. So it will take a long time to wind itself through the legal system.
In hospitals in Texas, then it's not being forced on people. In places like Texas and Florida, nurses are not being forced to get it then?
No, they are, company by company. It depends on the corporation. Most hospitals are not, there is almost no like standalone hospital which just exists on its own.
They're part of a group of.
They're part of a group, and usually they're across several states. So they're the ones where the corporate board, you know, the 10 or 12 people that are the real shot callers, they're part of the swamp. You know, these are guys that are working in government bureaucracy, then for the hospital corporation board of directors, then they work for big pharma. That's the swamp. So just like Millie doesn't represent, you know, lieutenant colonels and below, the directors of these hospital corporations don't represent the nurses and below and the patients. They're just part of the swamp. So you have no loyalty to them. And I would say if you have to take a huge cut in pay and a break in your work, if you move to a red state, because where I live, everywhere are help wanted signs. And if you're a professional, but for a while you're working at Ace Hardware, that's okay. If it pays the bills enough that you know you're not homeless. Think about what made America were people that were willing to get in, you know, basically take their own wagon from Philadelphia or New York to a place like Missouri, which was on the frontier, and then buy another wagon and a couple of oxen to go all the way through Indian territory somewhere to Oregon or California. That's who made this country, not people playing it safe. They used to say the cowards never started and the weak died along the way. You know, that was who built the West. Is the cowards never left Philadelphia and the weak ones, you know, they died along the way. And they had to fight Indians and disease and starvation, hypothermia, you know, the Donner Party. It wasn't a piece of cake. So don't think, well, I can't live without air conditioning. I mean, if it gets above 80 or below 77, I'm just suffering. Come on.
That's true.
Get some thick skin. Think of the pioneers and move your family to a free place. The more free people living together, the better it is for them.
Yeah, vote with your feet, basically, would be another way of looking at it. Vote with your
feet. And even within states, there's an interesting, when we talk about whether there'll be a civil war compared to secession, the first Civil War was like a whole block of states and over the issue of slavery, among other things, mainly slavery.
Yeah.
So, you know, what was it, like 13 states or something from Virginia to Texas said, we're leaving. That's not likely to happen. Something that is more likely to happen now, if we don't have like a total Yugoslavia, you know, every city fighting against its suburbs, is that in the blue states, in the liberal states, counties that are next to a red state will say, you know what, we're going to leave Virginia and join West Virginia. You know, we're going to leave Oregon and join Idaho. And that way, Idaho and West Virginia get more votes in the Electoral College. You know, hopefully voting is still mattering. But the blue states eventually just become the parasite hive. You know, the blue state has 3 counties with 52% of the population, and the other 50 counties are their host. It's a parasite-host relationship. So if the host counties start peeling away to come under the jurisdiction of a conservative state, then the parasite counties are left on their own. Then what? So that's a likely, it's like an internal secession, county by county, realigning the states. So the states which say, I'm standing with DeSantis and Abbott, they get bigger and stronger. And the states that are, you know, woke like Oregon, they get smaller and smaller until Oregon is nothing but Portland and Washington is nothing but Seattle. And California is nothing but Los Angeles and San Francisco. And the rest have joined Arizona or Nevada.
Yeah.
Nevada, if you're from there, I think. But it's a pronunciation thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, but don't stay near a blue hive. It's predictable. And if you are a nurse, you can quit. And even if you're a professional, so you work at Ace Hardware for a while. And
especially, you know, if you're a young man or a young woman and you have more flexibility, then even more so, you know, I get it that especially for people that have like little kids But if a lot of these folks that are single, man, grow some courage and go for it. Don't
But
just
for particularly for nurses and other medical first responders, it's a rare opportunity in history now where nurses have the power, because you can just go online and pick from 100 job offers, and all you've got to do is send them an email saying, is there a vegetable requirement? If they say yes, then you say click. No thanks. So the hospitals that don't want any staff are going to separate from the hospitals that want to continue functioning.
That's why I was asking, because this is a matter of percentage. If it gets to a percentage where it puts a real dent, or it really damages, and they have to take a few steps back, if enough people resist, then that may end up happening. Now, if enough people fall for this, then they're going to be just getting more into the pressure.
And you can see there's a couple comments that are kind of like parallel economy, working off the books. There are doctors who are working outside of the system, for example, to create tables for like using the eye medicine, which the big corporate pharmacies are not even allowed. Even if a doctor gives you a script, you take it to Walgreens or CVS, they say, sorry, we're not allowed to give you that. What? So the doctors are making tables for, well, what if you're using this syringe that's meant, it's the same drug, right? It's the same drug. The only difference is how you dose it for your body weight compared to taking a, 30 milligram pill or whatever. So there are doctors that are trying to help people with this, completely off the books. And now they're trying to like nail down like the leakers. It's like the squirters and leakers and people running out of an ambush. They're trying to make sure nobody gets away. So they're going to the Tractor Supply and threatening them that you have to prove you own a horse. You have to like bring in a letter from a veterinarian. So veterinarians and doctors that are working outside of the system, they're getting, so we're like developing an underground resistance. Where doctors that are saying one thing in the hospital context, but they're saying another thing to their friends outside of the hospital context. And the nurses are just not going to take it. The nurses are saying, no, I know what this is doing. When you suddenly see, 20-year-olds coming in with like stroke diagnosis, it's like, that's like, once in years, and now it's every week. What's going on? They know what's going on. They can't lie about it to the nurses. They can't hide it from the nurses. And if you stay on this channel only and get your information only from Gulag Yankee Tango, you won't hear it either. You have to go on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, DLive, Brighteon. You have to go there, because that's the last zone of free speech. We're doing this here just for the reach, but we're advising you to go outside of it.
Guys, it's subscribe to Matt's channel here in YouTube, because even here in YouTube, the more subscribers channels like this one get, it just puts more pressure on the conservative side of things, which is always good. And also on the Odyssey thing, in my channel in Odyssey, subscribe to that as well, because anything happens, it's like a backup for all of this. There's Peter Carey here. He says, glad you like the knife, Matt. Thank you. Thanks for what you both do.
Really
nice knife, Peter. That's pretty cool. I like it.
Look how that's it takes the thickness of the spine all the way up here. That's like a very serious
Now show it like this, like show it like the profile of the full blade. No, like sideways. I think it's a beautiful design. It's a great blade geometry.
I would never do this with this knife, but if you watch Forged in Fire, sometimes they do a test, like the oil can test, or the side of the helicopter aluminum test.
It's gonna be punching without any problem. S30VN, well heat treated, it's gonna be doing a number on that. Wouldn't have a problem at all. Yeah, sweet knife, of course. Yeah, man. Okay, Matt. You're the guy running things today
yeah,
in the StreamYard.
Yeah. So buy our books. Remember
Buy our
that
books and
remember the call sign
subscribe.
or the secret code here. I can't
Buy
remember
ammo.
whatever
Buy
that.
food. Stock up on food because things are gonna be getting interesting.
And think about your water. Have a water plan. You know that
No.
it's proven throughout history. Not only is food used as a weapon. Well, Idaho is causing a problem. Stop the food from going into Idaho. Make sure you live somewhere where they grow a variety of food. Store it and know where your water comes from. Not everybody can have a well, but at least understand where your water comes from. Because if it stops, you're going to have to come up with a plan really fast for you and your friends going to that place where they turn the water back on.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can't live.
Dizzy Dish says, did he say Matt has a channel here on YouTube? Yes, this is in Matt Bracken. The channel is Matt Bracken in YouTube. Look it up. That's where you're watching this right now. I think that's it. So subscribe to Matt's channel.
That's
because
right.
yes,
and I've only got like 6 videos, and I wanted to mention also, this is the only Peter Carey knife I have that he sent me. And this is like functional combat kind of, but you should see his website. It's like, it is absolute artwork. So it's combining, I guess you could say, like super high-tech steel, like S35 VN, but also with like all kind of grips and Damascene and just really.
What's the name of the website?
It's I think it's Carey Blades, but it's Peter Carey.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thanks, people. Is Matt channel set up for super chat? You have to set it up for Knockface here. You have to set it up for monetization because that's always good.
No, I don't. If you want to monetize us, then just just buy these things. Okay, this is how you monetize us. Again, if you have them, give them as gifts. So I would recommend that. They're hard copy. Yeah, they're also on Amazon. You can get them on Kindle and stuff, but they'll all disappear. A book you will have.
Paper.
And a book is a perfect gift. Easy to ship, easy to mail. Anyway, all right. I think we probably losing people. We're getting
awesome.
Yeah, no super chats. All right. Hit the like button, says Phil Carson. Where have I heard that name before? Okay. We'll see you next week. We don't know what channel we'll be on. And look, if we're both kicked off of Gulag Yankee Tango, then look for us on Odyssey or who knows where.
Rumble.
I'm on Gab. Yeah. I'm on Gab, so you can find me under my real name on Gab.
Could you do like a live stream in Gab? Is that a possibility? Is that possible?
I don't even know. I'm probably not going to be doing. I want to actually do a little bit of traveling coming up, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, man.
All right, awesome. I'm gonna click the red button and end the broadcast.
Bye, folks.
Adios.